This production is for adults only. Welcome to the Cannabis 101 podcast, part of the Cannabis Life Experience. Your guide through the legalization and consumption of cannabis in Canada and beyond. Join us on this journey and adventure with the wonderful plant. Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 83, hour number 1 of the Cannabis 101 podcast. My name is Dean Millard, and it's not just about getting high, it's about getting healthy. We discuss a lot of different things when it comes to the plant. One of them is getting high, and a lot of other things about how it can benefit you. We also dive into the world of cannabis news and business. But there is one way that we do kick off the show around here, and that's by finding out simply, what's your groove?
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Can you dig it?
Kinda grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Pipe in a crate, long in a blend.
This is great. This is the bee's knees.
Can you dig it?
So when I say what's your groove, I want to know that while you're listening or watching this, if you're grooving with something, as in something from the cannabis plant, let me know what it is. Whether you're smoking a joint, you've got some edibles, you got some CBD, who knows? Bong in a crate? Never know. What's going on with you? Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at the Cannabis 101, Cannabis 101 Facebook on Instagram, or Cannabis 101 podcast on Facebook and Instagram when people aren't getting kicked off of those platforms. And you can email me as well. Cannabis101podcast at gmail.com. This is what I am grooving to. Some CBD tea from Every. It's a decaf peach ginger green tea, and it's very, very, very tasty. So get a little bit more of my groove on, and we can kind of get on with the show. I'll explain a little bit more about some CBD in just a little bit. Here is what's coming down the hash pipe on this episode. David Wiley from the OZ is going to drop by once again, as usual. We're going to talk about some major sales in the cannabis retail sector in the year 2020. Massive increase in sales when it comes to that. Speaking of massive, these fees, there are some fees rather that Vancouver retail stores have had to pay in the past. Hopefully they'll be coming to an end because they are simply outrageous. A great story from a Nova Scotia LP on how they reclaim plastic from the ocean and package their cannabis in it. Just brilliant. And we'll end things with some research being done into THC impairment. And how do you test for it? Because that is very, very serious. So David and I will discuss all of that as well. We'll tell you about the OZ and the magazine that will be in stores for you to check out in different places. And it's online right now at OkanaganZ.com. Malcolm LaBelle from the Green Generation Co. She joins us every week for the business of cannabis. She's going to tell us about the Green Book. She's going to pitch to you why you should be interested in a new venture that she has going. I mentioned earlier about, lots of people having their Facebook or Instagram accounts deactivated or just, their posts being taken down. Malka, she's got a solution to that. So we'll tell you a little bit about that as we go. Our cannabis question is about CBD. Our cannabis character is from the show F is for Family. I don't know if you know about this show. I just stumbled across it. I can't wait to watch more episodes of this one. And our weed word of the day will have to do with joints and concentrates. We'll also tell you a little bit about our the Weed Weekly, that comes out every Friday right into your inbox. Recaps the show. We have a giveaway and much more. But let's get things going right now with the cannabis question.
It's prize time. Chime in on the cannabis question.
Okay.
And you could win a Cannabis 101 podcast prize pack.
Pipe and a grape, bong and a blint.
Hit us up on any of our social media feeds or email us at cannabis101podcast@gmail.com.
Okay, here we go.
So the cannabis question, if you're watching, you can see it on your screen. If you're listening and you want to check us out on video, head to our YouTube channel. Just search for the Cannabis 101 podcast. The question is, what do you like about CBD specifically? If you do use CBD, you don't have to tell me, why you specifically take it, but I just want to know why you like it. If you do consume CBD, what are the reasons and maybe the effects? Now, it's very commonly said that CBD will not get you high. No, it even says on this packaging of this CBD tea that it contains small amounts of THC. Now, we all react differently with our own endocannabinoid system. So you can't just say CBD doesn't get you high, because also high is different for other people. So I think it's kind of better to maybe use the word intoxicated. THC, alcohol, those are intoxicants, things like that. So what I'm trying to get at is that for some people, they may feel so relaxed, they might think, oh, I'm high because I've never experienced this much relaxation before and things like that. So kind of high, you can be high on life, you can be high on energy, you can be high on your job, you can be high on your partner, your relationship, you can just be high on many things. So intoxicated is a little bit different. You're almost not, you're very unlikely to get intoxicated by drinking CBD tea. For me, it just, and this is for a lack of a better term, people used to say, oh, I had 3 fingers of scotch last night to take the edge off. CBD takes the edge off without damaging my liver and things like that. It just kind of brings the 9 out of 10 maybe down to like a 6 out of 10 or something like that. And it also really helps me with tolerance breaks. When I want to take a tolerance break and not consume THC for a little while to improve my tolerance so I can, enjoy those highs that I do like to have, I use CBD. I vape it in the Volcano Hybrid, the Supernova that I picked up at Nova Cannabis Jasper Ave. So I use it in that. I do different things. I don't think there's any CBD concentrates. I'm still learning a lot, so I don't know if there would be any CBD concentrates. I don't know. Maybe there are. Maybe I could be totally wrong. Actually, I think there are. Well, there are pens. But for something to go into something like the Slash from Stone Smiths, I'm not sure if there's kind of CBD things like that. But again, I could be totally wrong, and if I am, please reach out and let me know. I always like being correct. So if I am wrong on that, let me know. But for me, yeah, it's just kind of like a relaxer, takes the edge off. I take either a squirt or a capsule in the morning, one at night, and then I try to have some of these teas throughout the day. We try to make a full pot of this, and then if we don't drink it all, then we put it in the fridge and you have it with some ice, and it's delicious. So that's what I use CBD. That's what I like rather about CBD, is it just brings everything down to a little bit more of a relaxing level. And I also take it for, chronic, knee pain that I have and sometimes my back pain. And I do notice that when if we run out and we don't have it for a few days, I start to notice just a little bit more cranky back and things like that. So it certainly is amazing. It's not a wonder pill or oil by any means, It's not going to cure cancer, but it, maybe something in the plant might someday. We don't know. But CBD can be a real benefit to so many things. Like, I tell people that have parents that are dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia, have some CBD for them. Get them some CBD regularly. And is this going to take away give their memory back? No, I'm not saying that. But what I might do is calm the agitation they feel when they can't remember, when they get into those states. And that's just as important for the caregiver as well, to help them out. So there's a lot of things that CBD can benefit from. For me, it relaxes me, and it also helps out with some of the kind of the aches and pains that go along with getting older. All right, I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up, as mentioned, on Twitter at the Cannabis 101. You can also get us on Facebook and Instagram at the Cannabis 101 Podcast. And you can email me as well, cannabis101podcast at gmail.com. And just for chiming in, you can get in the mix for a Cannabis 101 Podcast prize pack. Just like that. Very, very cool. And of course, thank you to all of our partners that make this show possible, from David Wiley from the OZ, who you're going to hear from in just a second. Also, the Green Generation Co. and Malcolm LaBelle. Andre from Regal Cigars has been great. So many other people, the different retail stores that, help me with information and contacts and just general support. It's been awesome. And the support from Stone Smiths has been wonderful as well. We've got the Slash on our set. And as I've told you many times, the coolest thing about the Slash compared to any other concentrate pen out there is you've got this built-in loader right there. Scoop it up, throw it in, boom. And you're vaping with the auto fire. Double click, let it heat up for 4 seconds, and then you fire away. It's so amazing. They also actually are going to improve this. They've got a redesign for the new chamber, a redesign of the internal coil structure. That's going to heat that thing up even faster and get bigger clouds. And it's fast enough already. So check them out at stonesmiths.ca. If you're a retail store, you'll definitely want to get this in your shop because it's a hot seller. And right here in Edmonton, a local company, local to me anyway. So that's why I love to tell people about them.
What's happening? We'll tell you right now on This Week in Cannabis News.
Good to be chatting with my good friend David Wiley from the OZ once again for This Week in Cannabis News. You can see, if you're watching, the beautiful website for Okanagan Z. And of course, David, we chatted last week. The Ounce magazine is out, and it was on digital format, and now you have it in actual magazine format, real world format.
It's awesome. As an old print journalism reporter, I just love having a printed copy. And I can show you this handsome guy in here who might look familiar if you're watching. I got Dean on the back last hit, and a great piece by Dean about athletes and sports and how cannabis might soon become a big part of that world. So it's great to have this, and we'll be sending a stack over to you. So anybody out in your way who wants one, bug Dean for it.
I will be dropping it off at several stores, and I really do think cannabis, and as our motto is on this show, it's not just about getting high; it's about getting healthy. And cannabis in general can change the complexion. Pain management with athletes, recovery, just general enjoyment. So I hope people get a kick out of the article, because I think it really is something that we should be looking at as well. As for the stories that we're going to go with on This Week in Cannabis News, I think these 4 stories that we have today are very diverse and some real interesting good news stories. And let's start with a good news financial story, because, man, so many people think there are no good news financial stories in the cannabis industry. But last week we talked about, the numbers not being correct, and it was actually higher, and we're getting even higher, 120% increase we're talking about, David.
This is the cannabis industry really is growing by leaps and bounds. It's come out now that $2.6 billion in legal recreational sales took place in 2020. If you factor that at $8 a gram, you're looking at 325 million grams sold. Kind of an interesting way to look at that.
Wow.
The tally comes from the monthly figures that were released by Statistics Canada throughout the 2020 calendar year. And December was particularly a good month for Canadian cannabis retailers. That's Christmas time, so I imagine that people were enjoying the holidays and looking at cannabis as a gift. And just under $300 million was sold in that month alone. So to put that into perspective, 2019 calendar year sales were $908 million. So December alone in 2020 sold more than a third of what was sold in all of 2019. This also, 2020 was the year where legal recreational sales alone overtook illicit sales. And it's just showing that trend on the up. Even as we talked last week about the difference between the calendar year sales, $908 million, and the fiscal year sales in 2019 of $1.3 billion. It's a stark difference just between those few months that change in the fiscal and calendar year. And Statistics Canada, one of the researchers who monitors these sales numbers, when I talked to him, even he was surprised at how fast the cannabis industry is growing, because you don't normally have that big of a gap between a fiscal and a calendar. And now we see the difference between 2019 and 2020, and it really is mind-boggling. And all provinces across Canada are actually seeing double-digit percentage increases in monthly sales totals month to month. So it's really a hot industry right now.
Yeah, it really is. And the one quote from this article that I really love that we have up on the screen if you're watching is that you mentioned it, legal sales of recreational cannabis overtaking illicit sales for the first time. And I honestly, I didn't think this was going to, we're 2+ years in. This is happening very quick, much faster than I expected. And I think people, there's going to be somebody on some block corner probably selling booze some point, just like there's moonshiners still out there doing that. But I think we're seeing a trend, and it's only going to get better. And at some point, I don't know, do you see the illicit market being almost negligible?
I think it'll always be there in some form or fashion. I think that we're going to see a lot more home growers as time goes on too, and those sorts of things might have an impact on cannabis retail sales. But overall, as brick and mortar stores continue to increase, as normalization continues to take place, as the products become more diverse and more familiar to people, particularly when Cannabis 3.0 hits, and we're seeing products that mimic the ones that we have in our household now, but contain cannabis, as regulations over CBD ease, the industry is just poised for growth upon growth upon growth.
Yeah, and you know what? That you made a really good point in that maybe there's people that still are buying from the illicit market that might get into growing their own, and then those illicit sales drop that way as well. But clearly, cannabis sales are up, particularly when you look at the four biggest provinces when it comes to cannabis retails, being Ontario, Alberta, BC, and Quebec, which kind of surprised me because everything I've heard about Quebec is everything is so strict. I mean, they were one of the provinces that wouldn't let people grow. So a little bit surprising. Maybe it speaks to the appetite that people have despite, the even stricter regulations.
Yeah, and also just the force of their population. Quebec is a pretty big area, and whether you come in from a province that is friendly toward it or not friendly toward it, there are all kinds of people within every province that just love the cannabis plant.
Indeed. Well, this is a story that, I'm glad to see an outcome, a possible, fixture of what was a very expensive issue for Vancouver pot retailers.
Oh, man. Vancouver City Council voted to cut the $34,000 a year legal cannabis retail fee that they have to pay every year. I mean, that's got to hurt. $34,000 really you could buy you a full-time employee, and feels like that's what we should be using that money for. But what they will use it for is up to them. The motion passed last week, and think about it in contrast of liquor stores who pay an annual fee of $429. Just a sliver. It's 80 times less than what legal cannabis is paying. It's actually the highest fee in Canada and was put into place before legalization for medical dispensaries. So Councillor Rebecca Bly from Vancouver says that in response to all this, the illicit market is growing and the legal market is not in Vancouver, which is back asswards. And she says that the move is meant to help licensed retailers thrive. She says that she hopes that these retailer fees, once they get updated, hopefully at the end of the year, will be more comparable to the liquor store fees. And as for where that revenue goes from the fee, it's actually spent around enforcement on the illicit market. And so that's what that's being used for. Maybe that's a reason why we're seeing greater amount of enforcement in Vancouver, when compared to other parts of the province here. Maybe not. As for what's happening with the next steps, city staff have been directed to come back with a recommendation before the licenses need to be renewed again December 31st, 2021. So they have some time to figure out what that fee is going to look like.
Well, the kind of the really encouraging thing about this is the vote was, I think it was unanimous. I think there was one absentee councillor, but everybody was in favor of this, which is encouraging because, as we've often said on this program and many others, is the cannabis industry doesn't want any special treatment. This is one equal treatment, right? Like, we're not asking as an industry to bend the bylaws. We're just asking us to put us on the same level playing field as everybody else so that we can also be able to feed our families and things like that. And so this is a good step, and hopefully there's more steps. You and I have talked about it, whether the Canada Health Act and the regulations and the restrictions. They just want level playing field. And Vancouver City Council looks like they're putting retail stores in the industry of cannabis on that level playing field with this move.
And who gets hit when these fees are so exorbitant? It's the consumer.
Yeah.
Of course the retailers suffer. At the end of the day, it's the consumer that pays the price for that fee through the price on weed. And yeah, as that councillor said, that doesn't do anything to combat the illicit market.
Yeah, indeed. All right, we have talked about some kind of innovative companies and different things in the past, and this is a story that just warms my heart. Like, this is amazing. And I've had a few really environmentally conscious LPs from out east on my program already, and I've actually already reached out to this company because I love this idea so much. So tell us about what this Nova Scotia cannabis company grower what they're doing.
Nova Scotia cannabis producer Aquilita. They're using ocean-sourced plastic containers for their cannabis products. They're based outside of the Atlantic coast city of Halifax, and they're making the recycled cannabis containers through a partnership with Sana Packaging. The first order of containers were made using 2 tons of plastics reclaimed from the ocean. Aquilita's products around the country are going to begin transitioning to this new packaging over the next few months. It's already being used on their 5-gram containers of their medical cannabis, and now their recreational brand Reef is going to start using the new packaging next month. And these are the kinds of solutions that I think people have been wanting. We've heard so much from cannabis consumers who are interested in purchasing more sustainable types of packaging. We've seen comically large cannabis packaging that's come onto the market, and some packaging that just isn't easily recyclable either. So this is a great way to do it. You're using plastic out of the ocean, and it doesn't have any impact on what the cannabis looks like, because if you're still able to ship them out to customers in those protective plastic jars, then you're not getting your buds squished in those little tiny baggies. And that's been my only problem with a more minimal approach to packaging.
It just seems like this industry, and in a good way, is always kind of one-upping each other and doing something even better. And I had Tanner Stewart from Stewart Farms on, and their bath bombs, everything, including the wrapper on the bath bomb, is 100% biodegradable. And then, here comes Aqualita, and this is another great story about, I just can't believe that they use 2 tons of reclaimed packaging. It's so smart. Like, it's getting better and better. And, I love the day where we just don't have any more plastic packaging. And, if it's reclaimed, then at least you're using it. But man, I would love to see the day where we're just all glass. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I doubt it, but glass is obviously the perfect thing. But when you can do something like this, I mean, for me, that would make me want to go out and support this company. And, that's what the cannabis industry, I think, is. Great product, but also kind of a good story that you can get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're literally a green industry. I think that people around the world should be looking at the cannabis industry as leaders in sustainability. And I'm looking forward to the day where other products start to look at the way that cannabis is being packaged and sold, and use the example being set by cannabis producers in their own products in other sectors.
Indeed. Okay, this last story is really interesting. We've been talking about some pretty cool research being done on, the specifics of the plant and some of the, the viruses that it might be able to fight. And now we're looking at some research on how THC is measured when it comes to impairment. And, this was a really hot topic right out of the gate of legalization. And it kind of seems to have been quieted down a little bit. So I don't know what's happening, but the research in this experiment that they did is quite interesting.
Yeah, it comes from the quest for an effective roadside cannabis test, which has been extremely elusive. Different companies have tried it, and now a new simulated driving study published this month has found that setting a limit for cannabis and driving and testing for THC in a person's mouth or blood during enforcement just aren't reliable indicators of driving impairment. This isn't the first study to do that kind of research and come to that same conclusion, but it is the latest. So we've got researchers from the University of Sydney in Australia, as well as Baltimore-based Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. They found that these types of tests just are unable to accurately assess when or how much cannabis has been taken by an individual. And that's different from a blood alcohol concentration. The standard test for roadside stops to find out if someone's been drinking a little too much before driving. You pull them over and get them to blow into that test. Works fine with alcohol, but there's an inconsistency between impairment and THC concentrations. The authors of the study concluded that there really is a pressing need to develop improved methods of detecting cannabis intoxication and impairment. Looking forward to when they're able to do that, because it certainly seems like the technology to do so is not there, not developed.
Yeah, and listen, I think that this is something that we need to have an accurate test so we can keep impaired drivers off the roads. But it's such a different kind of ball of wax, if you will, and not the kind of wax that you would use in the Slash from Stonesmiths, but it's such a weird kind of ball of wax with this, and their study kind of even proves it, where the one quote where they say, in 2 cases, one volunteer had a positive THC result but displayed minimal impaired driving, whilst another volunteer had a negative THC result but driving impairment was profound. So, and we know this about cannabis is everybody reacts differently because of the individual endocannabinoid system that we have within us. So, somebody could have a joint and be really, really look impaired, and another person could have the same thing and be totally fine. So this just has to be nailed down 100%, or all these things, or a lot of these cases, could be overturned down the road if they're indeed charged with something.
Yeah, I think that they need to get it right the first time. rather than ruining people's lives over a faulty test.
Yeah.
I chuckled in that part of the research where they said that someone had zero impairment and yet still drove like they were impaired, and thought that they really called out some poor schmuck for his or her terrible driving abilities.
They weren't impaired. They're just a bad driver. You're right.
That's Australia's worst drivers contestant right there. But that, like you said, I think that the big takeaway from a lot of these studies is really that THC affects people very differently, depending on how much they take. And you only have to look at edibles to see that. One person at 2.5 milligrams is in space, and another person can ingest 1,000 milligrams and still be feeling fine. So yeah. I don't get it. I'm thankful for all this research because maybe they'll have an explanation as to why I'm such a lightweight.
Well, you're right. The point you made there before was absolutely number one, is that whether you're acquitted from an impaired driving charge or not doesn't take away, like even if you're acquitted in the end or it's overturned, doesn't take away from all the stuff that you probably had to go through in the first place when you might not have been impaired, but maybe it was from the day before. I'm not exactly sure how it works. So, just getting charged with an impaired charge, getting an impaired charge can be just so disruptive. And if you weren't impaired in the first place, that's even worse. So you can't, people think that you could just go and get it overturned and your life is good. Well, no, people don't forget sometimes. And what happened if you had lost your license and you depended on it? So you're absolutely right. This has to be done right from the start in the most correct way. And I've even heard that, smoking a joint, you test differently than maybe if you had a drink or an edible or something. And so there's so many discrepancies out there with any kind of testing that's going on right now because it's so new. And this was the thing that I always thought was holding up legalization. I thought there was never going to be legalization until there was a roadside test, which they probably should have had developed before they legalized, but still, there has to be the discrepancies absolutely have to be fixed in this situation.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. There just is no reliable test right now, and when it comes to impaired driving, I mean, let's be real. You're guilty until proven innocent after you get pulled over and fail any kind of a roadside impairment test.
Yeah, 100% well said. You can check out the OZ at OkanaganZ.com. You can download the digital copy of the new magazine. I can't wait to get my hands on the actual magazine. And when I do, I'll be getting it out to some great stores. So check out OkanaganZ.com and find them on Twitter at OkanaganZ. David, thanks as always for joining me, man. Have a great week.
You too, my friend.
Smoke some grass. It's time to bust out this podcast.
Beautiful stuff from the artist My Dead Dog. Man, that guy is like a wizard with the guitar. Anyway, that is the weed song that you just heard. You'll hear the marijuana song as we wrap up the show a little bit later on. But always love hearing from the artist My Dead Dog with the weed song. This is news I don't like bringing you every week, but I got to keep telling you that the cannabis, especially for our new listeners and viewers as well, but the Cannabis Hemp and Expo has been postponed. It was supposed to happen in April. What it does, we'll be there on location providing episodes, broadcasting episodes. So I'd love when we safely can get together for you to come down and visit us at the Cannabis Hemp Expo. Find out more information at cannabishempexpo.com, and we will be giving away tickets to this event whenever it does certainly get off of the ground.
You got a joint?
No, not on me, man.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Time now for Cannabis Characters.
Dopest dope I've ever smoked.
Celebrating the best from fictional 420 film.
Hey, I am your stoner.
And beyond.
Heavy girl with that, man. Is it heavy stuff, man?
So today on our Cannabis Character, this is a show I actually just stumbled upon. I've pretty much gone through all of the kind of cannabis characters from most of the cannabis characters from the movies that I've seen. So I'm always on the lookout. So by the way, if you know of a great cannabis character that I have yet to talk about, or even if you don't know that I've yet to talk about it, send it my way, and maybe it'll be somebody new that I will have stumbled upon. And I love animation when it comes to cannabis as well. So this is a cool show that I have stumbled upon, and the cannabis character is played by Justin Long. He plays the character of Kevin Murphy in the show F is for Family. Justin Long. You will know that name, and certainly you'll know the voice. So I can't wait to get into more episodes. It's on Netflix. It's created by the comedian Bill Burr. He's also one of the voice actors, and Michael Price. It's set in Pennsylvania in the 1970s, and it follows an Irish-American family. And Justin Long voices, one of the main characters, and he's a teenage kid, likes to get high and smoke pot with his buddies. In this scene, he's hanging out, they're smoking some J's with his buddy Lex, who's voiced by Mo Collins, and she voices a whole bunch of other cool characters as well. And Bolo, voiced by Trevor Duvall, who is born in Edmonton, right in my neck of the woods. So it's really cool to have a neat little local connection to this show. So this is a clip from one scene in the show F is for Family, featuring Justin Long, who voices the character Kevin Murphy.
Splifter time! Yeah, man. Let's clean them ganja seeds before daylight comes and me wanna go home.
Where'd you get that queer album from your dad's asshole?
It's the first double album I grabbed. Leave me alone.
Just busting you.
When I was little, my parents put this on every Sunday after dinner. Like they were Mr. and Mrs. Liberace or some shit.
Oh, you're bumming me out. Let's blaze.
My dad is such a hard ass. He's breaking my balls because I'm flunking history.
Who needs to learn about shit that already happened? If they had a class called Future, I'd be all over it.
Yeah, man. In the future, you won't even have to study. You just take a smart pill.
I would totally overdose on those.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there is F is for Family. Justin Long, the main character in that scene, voicing those characters for F is for Family. Now, the thing about that's kind of cool is, if you grew up smoking weed, you did that with your buddies. You sat around and you got high, and then you had these crazy ideas. They actually go on to talk about first ladies that they would prefer and some different things. And that brings back memories for me with me and my buddies. We used to sit in the middle of a room in Winnipeg and put the speakers in all corners and listen to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. We had a big purple bong and just try to figure out all the animal noises that you heard and everything. And then, you get into different conversations. So it kind of brings back a lot of memories, I'm sure, for a lot of people who did that in the 1970s. I did it in the 90s. I'm not that old. And so this show, by the way, is 4 seasons. Right now, they've just renewed for a 5th and final season. So I'm sure that will be pretty entertaining. I can't wait to get into it. And it's full of great actors like Bill Burr, as I mentioned, Laura Dern, Sam Rockwell, and there's some really funny actors in cameos as well. Vince Vaughn is one of them. He's actually, his production company I think he's an executive producer. So that's Justin Long, playing the character of Kevin Murphy in F is for Family, and you can find that on Netflix.
This is the Business of Cannabis, a joint venture between the Green Generation Co. and the Cannabis 101 podcast. Bringing you the latest bud, biz, buzz.
All right, time to get into the latest bud, biz, buzz here on the Business of Cannabis, and you can find out how Melka can help you at greengencompany.com as I bring in Melka LaBelle from the Green Gen Company. And I don't know what it's like in your neck of the woods, but I see grass now, Melka. Snow is melting up here, so it's very, very nice.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen the ground in about a day, but it's blue skies. It's above zero. It smells like spring is in the air. Is that too early? I feel like we're jinxing it.
Yeah, I would want to be careful about that because we still have March to get through. But man, it has been really, really nice in the last few days, and it was nice to kind of get out and stretch the legs and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to spring, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be talking about today in something that you've been working on for quite a long time.
Oh my gosh, it feels like a marathon that took like a really long time, but it's also very, very quick. So a bit of the preamble. So back in the summer, I competed in something called the Alberta Great Marathon Pitch Competition. And it was kind of on a whim. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but essentially I just pitched one project that I was working on. And as you know, I'm working on lots of different things like all the time that are related to cannabis and green and hemp and all those fun things. So this was like a 3-minute pitch that I had to put together and put out there in a live competition in the summer. So it was a full day of these pitches. I think there was like 80 of them delivered back to back from people all around the province. And from that, I got picked up by the Accelerator Group, this really cool Star Trek-y looking thing in the corner there. The Accelerator is an Alberta-based accelerator incubator program, kind of modeled after Silicon Valley type incubators. They actually had done an incubation program with I think it was called the 500. It's a startup group in Silicon Valley. And then they came back to Calgary and decided to launch their own version that was more tailored to the Canadian ecosystem of startups, or the Calgary system of startups. So they were essentially watching the pitches that were on this marathon, and it recruited me to be part of their accelerator, which was super cool because there was all these like really incentives for new diverse ideas. And my pitch was not very tech related, but I kind of bent the rules a little bit and I included tech. Long story short, I've been working with them for 6 months, a cohort. We were batch number 8, and there's a bunch of other really cool companies that were all part of this. As you can see on the screen there, this is our group as well as the investors mixed into the mix. And today was our final pitch day. So we had another marathon, and I've been working with them on fine tuning the pitch around the Green Book. We've talked about a bunch of times on the show here, and that's actually the tech platform that I've been developing for the cannabis business, for cannabis entrepreneurs, or cannapreneurs, as I like to call them. So what we're going to do now is what's super cool. We finished off the investor portion, and now it's time to turn it over to the prospective customers, which is like you yourself, Dean, could be a prospective customer, and any other cannapreneur or cannabis entrepreneur that might be listening to our podcast. Hopefully there's a few out there. And I would like to share with them and you what I've been working on all this time and how they can basically get involved and potentially be a customer. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to share with you the pitch, and I'm going to just explain it because a lot of the content around it is stuff that you've already seen. So it's and the slides just don't translate well in this situation. So we're just going to tell you all about it, and then you're going to see what you think and ask questions. And then at the end, we'll show our listeners how they can get a chance to potentially be a customer. How does that sound?
Sounds good. That sounds good. Fire away.
Awesome. So as we all know, I'm Malka LaBelle, and I'm the founder, and I like to call it the CEO of the Green Generation Company. And as we know, we are working towards ending the stigma on cannabis. That is the goal and mission of my company. I founded my company in 2018 while I was in my MBA at Queen's University. But before that, I was a sales exec with over 15 years of success in selling in very tough climates, particularly oil and gas in Alberta, as many of our people will know, literally closing business with fires, regulators, and falling oil prices all around me. That was the nature in which I was successful in sales. I was able to relate to my clients and be really successful in helping them solve their problems. And I took that. And then at the end of or middle of 2017, I personally suffered from a bit of a, unknown medical concern or issue that I used medical cannabis to try and get through and recover. And doing my MBA was part of that. So I had to sort of relearn how to be a human again. I sort of had to relearn how to think and be smart and all the things that I really lost in a period of time and while I was recovering with medical cannabis. And it really did save my life. I mean, cannabis, I would not be here if it was not for the plant. So I pay homage and have started a company as such. But right now what I do is I'm a vocal advocate at the national level. So the National Cannabis Working Group, which you hear me talk about all the time on the show, as well as the international level at the ISO and creating standards around what cannabis will be produced going forward. And I've built a huge network, definitely part of your help doing, Dean, and the podcast reach that we've had through events in person when those happened a long time ago, and through LinkedIn and referrals. And my days are filled back to back consulting and connecting and educating and advocating for this industry. And I've really got a sense of really understanding the problems that different people in this industry, I like to call them the cannapreneurs, have really had. And so we've built an ecosystem of brands and businesses, a whole bunch of different things. So we've got, my Hempy Distribution as my hemp distribution company, which I recently acquired. We've got the Hempire Packaging Solutions, which is the circular economy packaging. We've got the Truth on Cannabis storytelling, which I talk about all the time. Make It Micro, so the Make It Micro craft farmers, starting a business and growing with lowering the hurdles for craft growers to get into the business. We've got our curriculum development program, and we've been picked up for a second year. I just got renewed my contract for teaching at the Elevated Learning Academy, which is very exciting. And we've got the industry contacts valuation services, which I do for other companies. And there's a couple new ones on there, which I'll save for a later date, but some new exciting stuff called The Cannapreneur and Malab Co. So those are some new things which I'll save for another day. But the thing is I'm in the center of this ecosystem, right? Dean, I'm super busy working on all this stuff all the time. And it's kind of like a continuous flywheel, like all these different businesses which have different people involved. I'm sort of at the center of all of them. And we're working to really motivate and push the cannabis industry forward on a number of fronts. Someone said I'm like the nucleus of the cell or something, and I thought that was kind of cool. And it's really been my ability to connect with people and understand what they're doing and connect them around the vision of, ending the stigma on cannabis, which we both definitely align on. And we have a committed team. We've got a team that's working. I have a team that's working on a minimum viable product, which is our MVP, our platform, and our SaaS model. And hopefully some customers will be lining up after this to talk more about how they can get involved. So what is this? This is the Green Book that we're talking about. So the Green Book is essentially the cannabis industry online network. And essentially, we brought this together to solve the very complex problems that the industry has. I have a slide in my deck here where I show Manjeet Minhas from Dragon's Den on season 15 and with Loophole on it. It was in front of his pitch where Ian Kwiatkowski, who is the CEO of Loophole, one of my clients, Manjeet says, I thought alcohol was tough until I got into the cannabis industry. It's crazy. So from a dragon, that's saying a lot, right? And we know exactly what she's talking about. We're solving some really complex problems that people outside the industry don't necessarily understand. We have the social media censorship problem, which is very real to a lot of people, the disconnect between consumers and the industry, the government unrecognizing the economic benefits that the industry can bring, leaders and industry people feeling squeezed on all sides, competition fears, unknown path to profitability. These are all the giant, complex, hairy problems that the industry has right now that are very much not well understood by people outside of the industry, which is why I've been pitching this so many times over. So we created the Green Book, and it's a world where Imagine a place where the industry can go to connect, learn, and grow together. And that's what the Green Book is all about. It's the Cannabis Industry Network, an online platform. And it was literally built from the experience that we've had working with our cannapreneurs. That's our cannabis entrepreneurs who are frustrated and on the verge of really just tearing their hair out or breaking down entirely in some cases. They've really needed help in navigating the regulations and the stigma that still exists in this industry. It's not going away anytime soon. Hopefully it does faster, but still slow. And we're all working towards a sustainable, healthy industry that just hasn't realized its full potential yet. But the cool thing is we both know that on the horizon, there is a ton of cool stuff coming with the legalization rolling out, hopefully in the US in the near term, and the demand for cannabis around the world is growing. This is not a trend. This is a massive thing that's going to be staying for a long time because we all know it solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. We just haven't quite figured out how it does that yet, at least from the exterior perspective. So we've planned an unrolling of the Green Book, which is our online platform, which was kind of going to function like it will look a little bit like Facebook when it first got started. Like we've got a feed up the middle of your screen, and each cannapreneur that signs up gets to post their content. They could talk about what they're doing. They could post, really anything, just like Facebook. You can really upload anything onto your screen, and then you can share with others. You can ask people questions. You can have chats. You can have, subscribe to other people's feeds. It will very much function and feel like a Facebook concept. But the cool part about it is that you own your content and you pay for what other things that you like. So it's not free. It's considered, essentially you're not the guinea pig. We're not selling your data and your clicks and your likes and what you follow to other people. It's, if you like it, you're going to pay a micro amount, and collectively that will add up to the volume of business. Or you can just straight subscribe for an annual fee of $500 a year, which we think is pretty reasonable for a small business to get a ton of information in the same place. And so we've conservatively estimated that this business is worth a lot of money, but more importantly, it's not a lot of cost to enter. And for the listeners out there, we are only inviting 400 people to get started. So 400 Canadian cannapreneurs in 2021 is all of the invitations that we're going to be issuing. And you cannot subscribe to this unless you've been invited. So that means someone else has said, you know what, I really think your business and what you're working on and who you are is worth sharing with the group. And we think that you as a person or a cannapreneur can benefit from being part of this group. And that's the whole concept is like give back here and share your love with others. So basically there's 3 ways that you can pay. You can either subscribe straight out for $500 a year, or you could earn money, which is super cool, through an affiliate program. So if you have a business that has something to sell that people can buy either in person or through shipping it to them, or something online, then you can generate revenue from this business, including consulting revenue. So we have this cool thing called Pick Your Brain, which is like if someone just wants to talk to Dean about podcasting and how he set up his podcast, and even though it's really hard to make money doing a podcast, you could definitely make money consulting to other people on how you've made a sustainable podcast business and grown viewers and likes and how you've done it. So there's a consulting feature where you can essentially earn money for someone else calling you and talking to you about your expertise, which is super cool. And then we also have the click funding option, which is kind of like, it's like the tip function after a Uber drive or Uber ride. So after your visit or your session on the Green Book, you have a chance you're going to get a pop-up box that's going to tell you how much time you spent on the site, how many things you clicked and liked, and then it's going to give you an option to pay for that on a scale, like from $0 to whatever number that we think it might be worth based on how much time you spent. And then you can say, yes, I would like to pay this right now. Please charge my credit card. Here it is. Or maybe you can pay in Bitcoin, or maybe you could pay later and sum it up later, or don't want to pay at all. So those will all be options with the click funding model. And this is instead of a freemium model. So we're familiar with freemium models in LinkedIn and Facebook, where you're essentially paying nothing to be on the site, but someone else is essentially paying for your data. And we don't like that. We want to be in control of your information, and no one else is buying it but who you give it to. And that's the concept. There's no someone else watching you. If you like something, you click on it and you like it, great. If you don't think it's worthy of clicking on it, then don't click on it, because your like actually counts for money. And that's the point, is we want you to recognize that your likes matter, and your, how much time you spend on something matters. Kind of like, window shopping in a store. I'm just browsing, but if I'm there long enough, maybe a salesperson is going to ask me if I want to buy something. Same concept. So that's kind of it. That's the concept behind the Green Book. And we were out raising money, and we have been for a while. So we are still looking for investors for $500,000 for a safe note, which means that they don't necessarily have to give us their money. They can, we can borrow it for a period of time and then decide later if they want us to keep it as equity. It's cool. It's a cool financial instrument. We've already got the software built. Everything's ready to go. And we've been signing up people that are in our network and in our ecosystem already. And now it's time to turn it over to our followers and our fans and our subscribers. And if anyone is interested in getting a chance to try out the Green Book platform, they can just go to the Green Book platform's website, which is www.greenbook.site. That's the color green, and book.site. Or you can also get to it from my Green Generation page. There's a menu item at the top that says Green Book. So those go to the same place. And there you can subscribe or put your information in. And like I said, we're only issuing 400 seats right now. So there's 400 invitations. And then after they're done, we're going to evaluate that and see if we're going to open it up more. But for now, that's all there is. So hopefully we can share that with some users and followers. And Dean, obviously you are included in this if you'd like to have one, and see if it works for you. And we can go from there. So that's the pitch.
Wow.
And let's hear what you think.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's great to be able to have a place where your posts or your information isn't getting taken down, because that's happening so much right now. Whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, they're both owned by the same company, and it's extremely frustrating. Not only are people in the cannabis space in Canada not allowed to actually advertise, but now companies in the United States, because it's not federally legal, are not letting you post on their free sites either. So there certainly needs to be some place where like-minded businesses can go and share ideas and learn, and kind of, I just like the idea of like picking the brain of other people and kind of, expanding your network and asking a few questions, and maybe that doesn't lead to something right there, but maybe it does down the road.
100%. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons we did this, is talking to a lot of the cannapreneurs that we've all been speaking to on a regular basis. They don't make money for being on podcasts. There's no revenue stream for us. It's a direct translation of speaking about the industry and what we're doing all the time. So here's a way to get a little bit back. I mean, I'm not going to say you're making 6 figures, although there are some people actually. This platform that we're using, Pick Your Brain, to do this. It's another Canadian entrepreneur that I learned about. She was also a Queen's grad. And her platform is based on, there's another one in the US called Clarity. So I've actually put myself on Clarity and have gotten customers from this site, because I put out that I had expertise in the Canadian cannabis industry, particularly in software and data. And several people have paid me by the minute to speak. So and you can put that out there globally, and you can use the version in our site also in other places. It's basically just a link to your profile. So it's actually a really powerful tool for freelancers or consultants, in a space that they may not necessarily be it's their core revenue stream, but it could be very lucrative and help understand what people are looking for from a needs perspective.
Yeah, like I think the ability to, if you have something to sell, whether that might be is great, but just the ability to tell people what you're going on without it being taken down, and you're kind of have your target audience, right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about as far as dates and this, what are we looking forward to as future dates and things like that?
So right now we're taking potential greenbook.site is the website to go and enter your information to subscribe. So you have to say what zone you're from, like if you're from Canada or the US, because we are prioritizing Canadian members, and there's 400 seats. So as soon as we reach the 400 mark, we are vetting people. So we're making sure that you have to be a cannapreneur. So essentially you have to be in a business, you have to be working in a business, prospectively your own, or one that you're an owner of. And we're in March right now, so we're looking at for a March 15th launch date for turning everything on for all of the users. So whether we have all 400 by then or not, doesn't matter. We'll start with the ones that we've got and kind of grow from there. There's a lot of people that have been on the show that have already been approached to be part of this. Shabazz, for example, I was on the phone with him late last night practicing my pitch, and he's in Costa Rica having a great time. But no, but he's been a great resource because his concept around the industry is very similar. And he's also like, they're really trying to understand what the needs are of the people in this industry and how it's so varied. So the concept is middle of March. We're going to be opening it up to the users that have chosen to. So you don't get to come on for free. You can choose either the $500 subscription model, which per year, so you can pay upfront or monthly, or we'll have the click funding option, which basically means that every time you have a session, we're going to kind of ask you a survey of how was your time, and you get to evaluate it at that time. And there'll be options to say, well, I don't want to pay for it now, but to ask me next time, or charge this to me monthly. Like there'll be things like that where there'll be options, but we're essentially evaluating what is the value of something like this, because Facebook never asked anybody how much you want to pay for Facebook, right? Like, did they ever send you a bill and say, you're paying this to be on this platform? No. The thing is, they're selling your information to somebody else. So that's kind of that, underside that people aren't such a fan of anymore. And that's the concept we're essentially trying to avoid. And so it's a bit of a foreign concept. Most people are used to getting something for free and trying it out before they have to pay. So our version is the click funding model, but it will be open and accessible at the minimum middle of March.
Awesome. I think this is something, and I think you said something really important, is that the industry is so varied. There's so many different avenues that people can go down, and this industry is so new as well, and that's only going to grow. So a place where like-minded individuals can go and tour around and meet others and make connections, I'm definitely all for it. So one more time, what is the website where people can find it?
It's www.greenbook.site, S-I-T-E. And as you see my screen in front of you, there's the Green Book menus at the top of the page. So you can just click it right from the Green Gen Company website as well, and you'll get to the same place.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Malcolm. We'll chat next week.
Thanks so much, Dean.
This is the Cannabis 101 podcast, part of the Cannabis Life Experience, turning the wheel of cannabis one toke at a time.
Big thanks to the husband and wife voice team, Christine Bandelow and Kevin Dabbs. They do the voice work for all of my shows, actually, but exceptional job on the Cannabis 101 podcast. Great to partner up with them, as well as Stonesmiths. You can check them out at stonesmiths.ca. They've got the Slash, as I told you, 3 temperature settings, 4 seconds to heat up, fire away. They're working on making that even faster, but also coming from the team, something new. They're working on it now. They're very secretive. I've tried to pry the information out of them, but I can't. But look for a new product coming in April, this April. Really, really excited about what the gang has designed for this April, because the Slash from Stonesmiths is just totally out of sight.
Bud, dope, flower, ganja, Mary Jane.
We all have our own language when it comes to cannabis.
Herb, John Lennon, plant, Thai stick, salad.
So let's explore another weed word of the day.
Samuel L. Jackson, The Hobbit's Leaf, Lady Gaga, 420.
All right, so if you're watching on our YouTube channel or any of our social media channels, when we stream this show out, you can see on the screen what we're doing for Weed Word of the Day. We do one slang word and one standard word. And again, if you're listening, check us out on YouTube, the Cannabis 101 podcast, or any of our social media channels. We stream the shows out there and the individual segments as well. So the pinner we're going with, that's our slang term. It's a small, really tight joint. It looks like basically a pin. Most times they're way too tight in my experience, and they're hard to smoke. My buddy Scoot, he always used to roll pinners. I was never a fan of them. But hey, I can't complain because I can't roll anything. I'm a packer, so I have cones, and then I just, crush the weed up, grind it up, and pour it in and pack it in there. So I can't roll, so I can't really complain too much about pinners, but they're definitely not my favorite. They're like those Redicans that are out there. They're like the slims. They're rolled great. They burn perfectly. Usually pinners are just way too small and way too hard to smoke. Ask Cheech and Chong when they had that pinner in Up in Smoke. Now, the standard term is jelly hash, and this has a very, very high potency because it's a mixture of bubble hash, water hash, and hash oil. So you're combining bubble hash and water hash. You're combining two different kind of extracts to make some strong highs. It has been known to help cancer patients because they oftentimes get very nauseous from the effects of chemotherapy. So it's actually, a lot of people have reported that this has helped them with the nausea that comes along with chemotherapy, as well as some chronic pain. It's also a mixture of two types of hash, and the heat is applied, and the texture comes out like jelly because oil and water don't mix from the bubble hash and the hash oil. So there are your weed words of the day. We're talking about pinners, tiny small joints, and we also are looking at jelly hash, which is very, very potent.
The cannabis life experience. It's not just about getting high. It's about getting healthy. Turning the wheel of cannabis, one toke at a time.
And that's going to wrap things up for episode 83, hour number 1. You can find us on YouTube and click the subscribe button. Then click that bell and you'll get a notice every time we put out an episode. And we try to put one out, at least something out from the main episode to the individual segments Monday to Friday. And if you did enjoy the show and you're listening on whatever your favorite podcast format is, please subscribe as well. Leave us a review. Let us know. We're always trying to improve the show, and I love hearing from people. I don't always get back to them as quickly as I possibly can, but I do try to respond to everybody that reaches out, and I love hearing your thoughts on the show. We have the Weed Weekly coming out on Friday, right into your inbox. If you are a subscriber, just head to the Cannabis101podcast.ca and sign up for the Weed Weekly. We recap the show. We have a giveaway there as well. We spin the wheel of names, and there's so much more that goes into that. But it is only for subscribers, so you want to head to the website and sign up for that. And speaking of websites, check out stonesmiths.ca when you have a chance. They are a great local Edmonton company. If you'd like to join the show as a partner, or if you'd like to join the show as a guest, email me, please. Cannabis101podcast@gmail.com. That is Cannabis101podcast@gmail.com. Hour number 2 on Wednesday, we're going to talk insurance in the cannabis game as well. Chris Ianson, Regional Manager of Plant Life Cannabis, will join me for Know Your Buds. Past episodes can be found at Cannabis101podcast.ca. And if you're into other shows of the podcast variety, I've got a couple of sports shows at podcastalley.ca. As we leave you, as we always do, it's the marijuana song from the artist My Dead Dog. And remember, it's not just about getting high, it's about getting healthy. We'll chat on Wednesday.
Bowl for me